desperation smells like damp straw and copper. It is the scent of a small room where a child is slipping away. My 7-year-old brother, Kobe, lay beneath a threadbare blanket, his skin the color of dry ash. The village elders had already branded our wooden door with the mark of the recalled, a jagged white chalk line showing his soul belonged to the earth now. They told me to stop wasting firewood on a ghost, but I refused to let the cold take Heiji.
That night, I wrapped my ankles in rough hemp linen to quiet my footsteps and slipped past the sleeping village watchmen into the obsidian canopy. It is a forest where the trees grow so thick and tight, the leaves actively choke out the starlight. I was searching for the market of echoes when the grey mist finally parted. There were no normal merchants. No one was selling yams, palm oil, or woven fabrics. Instead, pale, faceless figures traded wooden boxes filled with preserved human size, jars of glowing blue memory smoke, and rare, blood-red life blooms pulled from ancient graves. At the center of the market sat a man, known only as the Master of Tides. His cloak was woven from the velvet wings of dead moths, and beneath his deep hood, 2 eyes burned like dying embers. "I need the cure for the wasting sickness," I whispered, my knees knocking against the frost-covered stone. I unclasped our mother's silver bridal cuff from my wrist and placed it on his table. "Take it. It is pure, heavy silver, the finest in Oakhaven." The merchant didn't even glance down at the precious metal. He let out a low, raspy sound, like dried leaves scraping against a tombstone. "Metal is a cheap mortal illusion, child," he murmured, his breath smelling of old tomb dust and dried cloves. "The life of a boy cannot be bought with shiny rocks. A living miracle requires a living exchange." "What do you want from me?" I asked, my heart hammering so violently against my ribs I thought it would burst. "I have nothing else." The merchant reached into his wide sleeve and pulled out a pair of long, heavy silver shears, the blades etched with ancient, unreadable runes. He didn't point them at my throat. Instead, he pointed a sharp, claw-like finger down at the floor, right beneath my heels. "Something you never thank, something you cast aside the moment you step into the sun," he whispered, his amber eyes locking onto mine, paralyzing my legs. "Give me your silhouette, your shadow, and your brother will breathe before the first rooster crows." Panic makes cowards and fools of us all. I looked at the dark silhouette on the stone floor, then thought of Kobe's cold hand. "Take it," I whispered. The merchant opened the silver shears and snipped the empty air right above my ankles. A sensation of absolute blinding ice shot up my legs and wrapped around my spine like a freezing serpent. It felt as if a vital, invisible muscle, a piece of my actual weight, had been violently ripped out of my body. My lungs seized. The glowing market blurred into streaks of terrifying turquoise light, and the ground rushed up to meet my face. I woke up on the dirt floor of my own hut, gasping for air as if I'd been drowning. The morning sun was slicing cleanly through the thatch roof. "Amina, look, I can stand. The heavy weight in my chest is gone." I bolted upright. Standing by the clay hearth, holding a wooden spoon, was Kobe. The deathly gray tint on his skin was gone. His eyes were wide, clear, and full of life. His cheeks flushed with a beautiful warm color as he greedily ate from a bowl of cassava porridge. The fever was entirely gone. The miracle was real. Tears of pure relief spilled down my face. "Kobe, you're breathing. You're actually warm." I stood up and rushed forward to hold him, stepping directly into the bright stream of sunlight pouring through the eastern window. "Ah!" I screamed, falling violently backward into the dark, unlit corner of the room, clutching my arm. The second the sunlight hit my bare skin, it didn't just tan, it boiled. My flesh began to smoke and blister instantly, creating an agonizing liquid fire that made my vision go white. Kobe dropped his bowl, the clay shattering on the floor. "Amina, your skin, it's smoking. What's wrong with the sun?" I clutched my burning arm, panting heavily in the dark shadow of the mud wall, tears of pain mixing with shock. I looked down at the floor to steady myself, and my blood turned to ice. The sun was illuminating every inch of the room. Kobe's shadow stretched long, dark, and clear across the dirt floor. But beneath me, there was only empty, bright dust. My body cast no shape. I held no darkness. I was a ghost standing in the light.
Before I could even explain the horror to my brother, the wooden door of our hut was kicked completely off its leather hinges. With a deafening crash, 3 village guards marched in, iron spears drawn, their faces twisted in absolute fury. Amina, daughter of the weaver, the head guard Rod, pointing his heavy spear straight at my face. By order of the Council of Elders, you are under arrest for treason and the theft of the sacred royal crest. What are you saying? I cried out, stepping in front of Kobe to shield him. I haven't left this room all night. My brother was dying. Look at him. Do not lie to the iron girl. The guard barked, his eyes scanning the room. The treasury watchmen saw you at midnight. They saw your exact height, your exact braided hair, and your exact face scaling the palace walls and shattering the stone vault. You were seen carrying the gold into the woods.
My breath caught in my throat. They saw my face in the dark. The guard stepped closer to grab my wrist, forcing me back. As he lunged, the bright sunlight from the open door caught my bare shoulder. My skin immediately sizzled, and a distinct puff of black smoke rose into the air. The guards froze. Their eyes moved from my smoking shoulder down to the floor. They saw their own dark shadows stretching behind them. Then, they looked at the empty, brightly lit dirt space directly beneath my feet. She has no shadow, the second guard whispered, his voice cracking with pure, superstitious terror. He lowered his spear, backing away. It's an abomination. She didn't use her hands to rob the palace. She used her own detached spirit. Kill the witch before she curses the village well. Run, Amina! Run! Kobe screamed. With a bravery he didn't have yesterday, he grabbed a heavy clay water pot from the corner and hurled it directly at the head guard's face, blinding him with dust and water. I didn't think. I grabbed a thick, heavy wool blanket from the bed, threw it completely over my head to shield myself from the lethal sun, and dived straight through the narrow back window of the hut. The heat of the sun struck through the covered blanket like a burning whip, but I kept running. I sprinted through the dirt alleyways, suffocating under the heavy fabric, while the shouts of the angry village mob echoed closer and closer behind me. There was only one place where the sun could never reach me.
I collapsed into the borders of the obsidian canopy, falling face first into the deep, permanent darkness of the massive trees. Behind me, the village guards stopped dead at the tree line, shouting curses but too terrified of the forest spirits to step inside the shade. I pulled the heavy blanket off my sweating face, gasping for the cool, damp forest air. I was safe from the sun. I was safe from the angry village mob. But as I looked deeper into the silent, twisted woods, the hairs on my neck stood up. A cold breeze blew past my ears, carrying a familiar sound, a low, mocking laugh. My own laugh. The merchant had taken my shadow from my heels, but it hadn't stayed in his market. It was out here, hiding in the dark. It had framed me for a crime I didn't commit. It had stolen my life, and now it was waiting for me to walk deeper into its trap. The obsidian canopy does not like intruders. The air inside smelled of rotten moss and old damp earth. Without my shadow, I felt lighter, but it was a sickening weightlessness, like a bird with half its feathers plucked. I pressed my back against a massive baobab tree, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The sun was fully up now, but out here, under the thick layer of black leaves, it was a permanent, suffocating twilight. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice barely traveling past my lips. No one answered, but then I saw it. On the damp forest floor, glittering against the black mud, was a single, pure gold coin. It was stamped with the symbol of the Oakhaven royal house, the royal crest. I knelt down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. It was freezing cold to the touch. 10 feet ahead, another coin gleamed, and past that, another, a trail of stolen gold, leading deeper into the heart of the forbidden woods. My shadow wasn't hiding. It was leaving a path. It wanted me to follow. The trail of gold. ended abruptly at the edge of a perfectly circular clearing. The trees here didn't just block the light, they leaned inward, as if they were listening to a secret. In the center of the clearing stood a massive, hollowed-out tree stump, glowing with a sickening purple light. The air was thick with the scent of burning copper and sweet ozone, and there it was, my shadow. It wasn't flat on the ground anymore. It stood upright, fully three-dimensional, made of shifting black smoke that perfectly mirrored my shape and my braided hair. It was dropping the stolen Oakhaven gold coins, one by one, into the hollow stump. Every time a coin fell, a new wave of whispers erupted from the wood, and the shadow's glowing red eyes grew wider, drinking in the noise. "Why did you do it?" I yelled, stepping out from behind the brush, my hands clenched into tight fists. "Why did you frame me?" The shadow froze. It didn't turn around, but its head twisted completely backward, a full 180 degrees, to face me. A jagged, glowing purple smile tore open across its smoky face. "You wanted Kobe to live," the shadow replied, speaking with my exact voice, but layered with a hollow, echoing hiss. "But miracles are never free, Amina. You gave me your darkness, and now I am building us a home." As the last gold coin vanished into the hollow stump, the ground beneath my feet violently shuddered. The roots of the surrounding trees uncoiled like waking serpents, tearing out of the soil. From inside the glowing purple abyss of the stump, a structure began to rise, a towering twisted mirror made of jagged black obsidian stone. But it didn't reflect the trees, or the sky, or the forest. It reflected a massive army of living silhouettes, marching through a burning Oakhaven. "What is that?" I choked out, backing away into the thick brush. "What are you building?" My shadow stepped toward me, its form stretching until it towered over me, blocking out what little light was left. Every time a mortal casts away their shadow to save themselves, the merchant feeds the pieces to the well, it whispered, its jagged smile widening. "You thought you were the only one, Amina. Oakhaven is built on forgotten debts. In 3 days, during the solar eclipse, the glass will shatter, the land will belong to the dark, and your earthly family will bow to us." Before I could scream, the shadow lunged forward, passing right through my body like a wave of liquid ice. My vision went completely black, my heart freezing in my chest. When I woke up, the clearing was empty, the shadow was gone, and the obsidian mirror was silent. But as I clutched my chest, a terrifying realization washed over me. I wasn't just safe in the dark anymore. I had to stop the eclipse, or the brother I sacrificed everything to save would be the first to fall. 3 days passed, like a waking nightmare. I couldn't return to Oakhaven by day, so I hid in the roots of the forest, watching the sky. Today was the day of the promised solar eclipse. The village was completely quiet, unaware of the doom marching toward them from the dark world. As the moon began its slow cold crawl across the face of the blazing sun, the bright daylight over the village started to bleed into a strange, sickly violet shadow. With every inch the moon covered, the terrible burning sensation on my skin began to fade. For the first time in days, I could step out of the dense forest canopy without a blanket, completely unhurt. But there was no time to celebrate. Deep inside the woods, a sound like 1,000 mirrors shattering echoed through the trees. The obsidian glass had broken. The barrier between our world and the shadow realm was gone. I sprinted out of the tree line, heading straight for my village. The sky above was now a pitch-black ring of fire, a total eclipse. The world was plunged into a cold, unnatural night. And right behind me, pouring out of the forest like a flood of living ink, was the army of silhouettes. At the front of the horde marched my own shadow, clutching the stolen royal crest, leading the darkness straight toward the home of the brother I had sacrificed everything to save. I breached the village square just as the first line of shadow soldiers swallowed the eastern walls. The shadows didn't kill, they simply touched the villagers, turning their skin cold and freezing them into living, unmoving statues of charcoal ash. I sprinted past the screaming crowds, tearing toward our hut. Inside, Kobe was backed into the corner, his small hands holding the wooden spoon he had used for porridge just 3 days ago. Standing over him, her dark hand raised like a blade, was my shadow. "Get away from him!" I roared, throwing myself between them. I grabbed the heavy clay hearth iron and swung it with everything I had. The iron passed right through the shadow's smoky neck, hitting nothing but cold mist. The shadow didn't flinch. Instead, it reached out and gripped my throat. Its fingers felt like solid, suffocating ice closing around my windpipe. It lifted me completely off the ground, pinning my back against the mud wall. "You foolish girl," my shadow hissed, its glowing red eyes burning inches from my face. "You cannot kill what you created. The merchant gave me your body's true weight. If you destroy me, your own heart stops beating." "Amina!" Kobe cried, trying to pull the shadow's icy hands off my neck, but his small hands went right through her smoke. I was suffocating. My vision began to blur at the edges, the sickly violet light of the eclipse fading into pure blackness. I looked past my shadow, up through the shattered thatch roof at the ring of fire in the sky. The eclipse was almost complete. If the sun was completely blocked, the shadow army would lock the villagers as ash statues permanently. I didn't have a weapon that could touch a spirit. I had no magic, but as my lungs burned for air, I realized the one thing the shadow had forgotten. It was born from my choices. The shadow was strong because I had treated it like an enemy, an unwanted piece of myself that I had cast away in fear. But it wasn't a separate monster. It was my sacrifice, my survival, and my grief. I stopped fighting. I relaxed my hands, reached up, and instead of pushing the smoky figure away, I wrapped my arms around its freezing neck, pulling its dark form tightly against my chest. "I don't hate you anymore," I choked out, my tears cutting paths through the ash on my face. "You saved my brother. You are a part of me. Come home." The shadow stiffened. Its jagged purple smile faded, and the violent red glow in its eyes softened into a warm, familiar amber. The suffocating ice around my throat dissolved into a pleasant, rushing warmth. The black smoke didn't vanish. It began to flow backward into my chest, sinking deep into my skin, my veins, and my soul. With a deafening roar of wind, the dark army outside the hut fractured into millions of harmless black butterflies, scattering into the wind. The frozen villagers gasped, their ash skin instantly turning back into warm, living flesh. The eclipse began to recede, pouring golden, brilliant sunlight back over Oakhaven. I fell to my knees on the dirt floor, breathing deeply, completely whole. Kobe rushed into my arms, crying and wrapping his small hands around my neck. I held him tightly, stepping directly into the bright stream of midday sun. My skin didn't burn. It didn't smoke. I looked down at the floor beneath us. Stretching out beautifully against the golden dust was my shadow, dark, sharp, and perfectly mirroring my every move. But it wasn't bound to the floor anymore. With a single thought, I could make it ripple, raise its hand, or shield my brother. I had entered the forest as a desperate girl who sold her soul. I returned to the village as Oakhaven's first shadow weaver. Every miracle has a price, but sometimes the only way to pay it is to accept the darkness you carry. Thank you for watching The Girl Who Sold Her Shadow. Subscribe right now and leave a comment below telling me what you would trade at the Market of Echoes.